What's up, everybody? Wes, Dead End Knipe here with Away.
Typical Lydia.
Today's show, we're going to be doing the 2015 in Canada, 2016 on Shudder, and 2017 in the United States, the Osgood Perkins feature debut classic, The Blackcoat's Daughter. Ring. Hello, it's me, Satan.
I did not know what sound you were going to make because it is such a quiet movie. You know, what sound is there to do? This movie was even called February. That was its working title. And there was some back and forth during distribution about what to title this film. A24 had come up with some title, apparently In the Dark, or It Happens in the Dark, or some lame ass BS like that. But we ended up with The Blackcoat's Daughter, which is such a evocative title, far more evocative than February or February. I have trouble pronouncing February.
I think a lot of people do. Hard to say, hard to spell. The Blackcoat's Daughter certainly does conjure images of black coats and daughters.
And that is where we are with this. It is a story about grief and loss. It has a really dynamic cast of a lot of very interesting girls that really carry a lot of the script, and the actors really shaped this script, I think. I really love this film. It's that sort of thing where it reminds me of a whole lot of my most favorite films, and a lot of them are cited as inspirations for it. So we see quite a bit of Polanski, some Rosemary's Baby going on in here. We see a little bit of Suspiria going on in here. We see quite a little bit of the Overlook from The Shining going on in here. And a lot of these camera tactics from a time when camera work was very different than it is now, where people, I think, understood the psychology of what they were going for before sitting down with their cinematographer, where nowadays a lot of times it's cribbing on these older ideas but not understanding what the psychology was in the first place.
There's something to be said as well about the time frame in which those films that Perkins was pulling from was released. You know, the general dissatisfaction that people were having with the institutions that a lot of these films were skewering, either a prestigious dance school or the traditional role of a man and a woman in a marriage, and how poor Rosemary was punished for listening to men and authority figures in her life, ultimately choosing to be a mother and ignore her friends and all the things that was coming in first wave feminism. Here we have Osgood Perkins going at the same sort of thing. This cast has a lot of young women in it, and you're going to be spending a lot of time with them in very atmospheric, long, dark hallways, and the general sense of foreboding that I think a lot of these horror films from the 1970s really excelled at. And I think that Perkins in this case was paying close attention to these films that inspired him so much to make this for his feature debut.
Entirely. And it is like his first directorial debut and writing thing, right? So writing a screenplay isn't an easy feat, and I think that he ended up doing something very special with it. And this is a lot like those Robert Eggers films where people either love them or hate them. People don't like a lot of Oz Perkins' work, as many as there are people who absolutely love it. And I really, really, really love this. And I kind of wish that he would revisit this style. He has somewhat, if you've seen the film Keeper, which is his most recent film, I liked it quite a lot. And I found it has a lot more similar tone to this, where it's a quiet film. Although it doesn't as much resemble those founding horror films as it does the more recent spate of elevated horror, people call it, of the more hipster horror or whatever. I don't know what people want to call it, but the stuff that A24 excels at. And not to throw A24 under the bus, because they have some really fucking awesome movies and some that are quiet like this. But I really wish he would find that magic that he had in this. And it's rare, but it happens that someone's debut is, to me, their most pure and shining homage to their own art form. And I think that that's what this is here.
I can agree with you on that. I think that this is a lot of script and story by necessity, even though Osgood Perkins had a very famous father and also a fairly famous mother as well. She was an artist, a photographer, or what have you. And both of them dying quite publicly, one in 9/11, and of course old Anthony Perkins dying of AIDS or HIV/AIDS in the early 90s. And so that sort of like grief of losing your parents, becoming a filmmaker, wanting to tell these stories, it seems like this is indeed a very distilled and pure version of that, because I mean, this seems to be the type of story that Perkins wants to tell in various ways throughout his filmography. I'm only seen 2 of his movies so far, but at the very least, the 2 that I've seen now deal with the same subject matter in vastly different ways, I'll give you that. But it's still ultimately at the forefront of at least these 2 stories. And I think The Blackcoat's Daughter has a lot going for it in terms of where it was shot. I'm obviously biased because old Kentville, Ontario is such a beautiful spot, and we are Canadian, and it is frigidly cold and snowy here in Ontario right now. And not quite February. We're recording this on the very last day of January, but by the time you're listening to this, my friends, we will be in February proper. Now, whereabouts is this film referred to as February? Because on Shudder, at the very least, the version I watched was called The Blackcoat's Daughter. Was this a working title, or did it actually go to print with this title?
It is a working title. It was a working title, but oddly enough, it's cropped up on Netflix recently as February, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's just an Oz Perkins purist that works at Netflix that has done this to people. I don't know if it was ultimately released somewhere under February. I don't think it was released as February at TIFF where it debuted. I think it's always been The Blackcoat's Daughter. It's been printed and stamped it as Blackcoat's Daughter. But it's weird that it shows up as February. And it does say also known as February when you look at it on like Wikipedia and such. It's weird for a working title to persist like that. And I can also kind of agree with why it does. It's shot in February. It takes place in February. It was shot in one of the coldest Februaries. Apparently they were experiencing minus 35 degrees, much like we did last week. So that's not abnormal. They had chosen Kemptville according to, I believe it was the little mini making a featurette on the DVD or the Blu-ray that said they wanted somewhere that statistically has cold and snow in February and March when they were filming, and Kemptville ended up having all the things they needed, right? So yes, definitely a film of necessity, a choice of necessity when it comes to filmmaking and production value. There's other Canadian films that take place in February, and Canadian horror films that quite famously take place in February, like My Bloody Valentine. That's one of the biggest ones, even though it is, of course, there by happenstance because the holiday happens to be in February. But Pontypool, which we covered, Tony Burgess's excellent Pontypool Changes Everything film and novelette. Yeah, that takes place in February too, and it is the cold, dark basement of the world that is fucking Canada.
I find that February is the great underestimated month of winter time because everybody always focuses on December and January, but man, February's can be cold and frustrating because I always find personally that by the time it's February, you're good and well fucking over it. Like there's no Christmas season, there's no joy of the new year. It is just endless weeks of cold and dark. And as foreboding and cold and dark as this film is, I really just agree with you. February is just not memorable. Not even in terms of us thinking about the wintertime, let alone the title for a movie, but The Blackcoat's Daughter, that stands out. And it's memorable to the point in which I remembered the name of this title. You had mentioned doing this. I can't remember if we said it on the show, but many, many, many weeks ago, we had discussed doing this film, and the film title stuck in my head like taffy. I definitely think that The Blackcoat's Daughter is a far better title.
It's interesting that it came from the little song, and I guess it's a good time to mention this is, as has become de rigueur, an Oz Perkins and Elvis Perkins thing, where Elvis Perkins does the music. And I'd read that Elvis Perkins didn't really like doing a film score. He found it too confining. He didn't like having those parameters. Being a singer-songwriter for years before doing this as his first film score venture, I guess he grew into it, and I will say I love the score of this film. He did a phenomenal job. Not only the score, but the soundtrack. Some of these songs, there's a song that Kiernan Shipka's character sings, Kat sings and plays piano at one point, and it's a very cute little song and very much showcases her very subdued vocal talent. A random song that he wrote for her on the fly, and that she performed twice, and that's it. Like, it seems so perfect. And the little song at the beginning, Deedle Deedle, the Blackcoat's Daughter, what is in the holy water? That is where this title came from. So it's just a lot of happenstance. Unlike Oz Perkins' reason for living, it seems, his stories of death and loss, the loss of parents, theme that he revisits throughout all of his films, it seems. This is like no exception. I think the only real exception to it is I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, in that it's the only one that doesn't talk explicitly about parents dying. It still talks about death, though. There's a lot of shots in this film that are cribbed from a lot of other filmmakers, like I said. And there's one thing that I will say going into this, there's a lot of people that would say they don't get it. And on my first watch, it took me a lot of like mulling and thinking and rewatching to fully really get, I think, what was going on here. It would take a real student of film to, I think, watch this one and done and get it and love it and understand everything that he's going for in this. I think it's multi-layered in a way that could be off-putting to a lot of people. There's even scenes where the camera isn't showing you everything, or the action is taking place in 1/3 sliver on one side of the screen, or the person is off-centered. There's not a lot of centered main character action in this. It's always kind of off to the side. There's things happening off the edge of the screen that you feel like you're missing something. And I think that even if you have watched it and understand what is ultimately a pretty straightforward story, you might come away from this thinking you have missed something. And I think a lot of that is this tactic of having everything off center a lot of the time.
Yeah, personally for me, and we talked about this a little bit before we started rolling, I did have a hard time parsing exactly what I was supposed to be watching. Now, out of the benefit of my film going experience, I decided to not even look at a trailer for this film. I didn't know that we were dealing with the devil. I didn't, spoilers. And I didn't know really anything except for a few images. I was seeing a lot of grays, a lot of blues, and darkness. That all tells me that this is going to be a chilly, slower style film. You can see it in the cinematography. The storytelling is there in the cinematography. And I was right. There were certain aspects of the story that I was not prepared for. And it left me confused. And I was very much paying attention to this film because I had a sneaking suspicion that I should. So this was a classic, phone is nowhere near me watching experience. So I could have my full attention, because a lot of the times when we're doing this show, it's just to everyone's benefit. And I just had, since I'd never seen this before, a movie demands your full attention. So that was me going into it, and even doing all of that to pay attention and to make sure that I was absorbing as much as I had to, I still needed to read something afterwards. I'm not a smart man, Lydia. And sometimes I kind of consider myself far too literal. Like, I have a hard time with metaphors. I have a hard time with reading between the lines in any way, shape, or form. I'm very much a student of, if you want me to think something, you're going to need to fucking put it in the movie, or you're going to need to tell me, because I don't know. I'm just not an abstract thinker. I'm like I said, I'm a literalist. And so films like this can be a bit hard for me to parse initially, but I do agree with you that the story is quite simple. But that leads perfectly into, what is this movie even about anyways? And dumb it down for me.
I dim it down. Yeah, no. It's most dumb, I'd have to say. A boarding school's a bad idea. Boarding school is just a bad fucking idea. And Kemptville is not very far away from Ogdensburg. If you're into the whole boarding school gone wrong thing, if you've been reading a lot about cults these days, if you have read the book Cultish or listened to those podcasts, there is one, I forget what it's called. Ivy Shores or some shit in Ogdensburg, and it is now an abandoned boarding school, and it was a deprogramming, sort of satanic panic kind of level school where a lot of girls were fucking mentally broken. And as a really good documentary called The Program, if you're into that. But yeah, boarding school's a bad idea. Relying on other people is just a bad idea, because this poor girl being abandoned there by, basically her parents who she's relying on, and having everyone else just sort of slowly peel off. Her parents aren't showing up, then the priest leaves, who's a friend of hers, then the headmaster takes off, then the senior that's supposed to be watching over her while she's waiting for her parents, quote unquote, to come pick her up from fucking boarding school, she dips on her, and she's left to her own devices while suffering I don't know what. We'll get into exactly what she's suffering. But yeah, this lonely little Suspiria-esque little, what do you call it? Like, it's a boarding school. They live there. There's nuns. It doesn't seem to be overtly Catholic, and it seems very modern. And they're leaving for what kind of break during February?
That was the first thing where I was monstrously confused. We opened this film with Catherine talking about her parents coming to visit. Now, she does have a premonition, and it very much reminds me of the beginning of The Changeling, although far less graphic. This is more of an atmospheric interpretation of that, but it's the same idea. It's somebody who's in a black coat, and they are very mysterious, very ethereal, and they are leading Catherine to a car which has been in a horrific accident, in which he says, your mother's in the car. She'll wake up, and then she'll let us know that she is counting down the days. I always wanted to do that when I was a kid. I said, I really wish I had a calendar, and then I would mark off the days, and I would maybe do it for like 5 days in a row, and then I would just forget. But she is counting down to February 22nd. Ah, yes, ladies and gentlemen, the classic school break of the last week of February. We all know what they're celebrating. Don't even bother to act confused. Everybody knows that you get 2 weeks off for Christmas. You're back to school for less than 2 months, and then you get another week off. And then presumably next month is also spring break. So, it's just, I don't get it. I don't understand what break this is, but I think it's just an excuse, let's say, for everyone to get the hell out of there, because everybody wants to get the hell out of there. And to the point in which the adults in the building very much have this attitude of like, well, your parents have to come and get you, but I'm fucking leaving. So I don't care what you guys are doing. So other people, the nuns that are here, they'll, I'm sure your parents will show up anyway. Bye, in like a Hawaiian shirt and big sunglasses. But no, and so this is how we open up our film. Initially, the person who we're first introduced with an evil premonition, and then it seems as though while she's waiting for her parents to show up, she might be in the school over break by herself.
And she also slowly but surely succumbs to the idea that her premonition must have come true. There must be a crashed car somewhere with her parents in it. But it's slow because at first we get a fairly, she's not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. She starts out a little morose and quiet and a little weird, we'll have to admit. She goes up to the calendar, circles it with a heart. Mom and dad come, whatever. It's cute. It's happening on February 22 in numerological circles. 222 stands for like sort of divine planning, things converging and things happening the way they ought to. And that will come into play later on in the future. Not just the future of this episode of the podcast, but in the future of Kat. And she is, fairly regular. She's a very normal girl. She's got a song to play for the recital later on. So she has things going on. If you compare the Kat we meet here with her very nice, tightly plaited, braided hair and her very quiet, soft-spoken, behaving demeanor to the Kat we meet later, who is scoffing at the Lord's Prayer, unkempt, wearing sweatpants and a school sweatshirt and matted, tangled, disheveled hair and huge black marks under her eyes from not sleeping, I guess, or whatever she's doing. It is a real departure, but it's such a boiling the frog thing within this film. You don't really notice that she's gone from a little bit weird to a little bit more weird. That's just what it seems. So it's kind of unfortunate in that way that there isn't a bigger change. But yeah, I really do like her weirdness, and the weirdness, the quietness, the fact that everyone is leaving to go on caucus. That's what it feels like. All the teachers are definitely abandoning everybody. And I wish that there was a little bit more change within her demeanor.
That's a common criticism for The Shining. That was Stephen King's major criticism of The Shining, that Jack Nicholson started out nuts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You hear that? Heard it on the TV. Right? It's like, he's got this coiled spring from the get-go. And so, I suppose you have, they have a point that is a very big departure from the Shining book, from what I understand. Full disclosure, I've never read it. But in this case, it's hard to really disagree that it's not enough of a change, because she is so weird in that opening meeting. And it makes me wonder, what is she thinking? Like, kind of coyly smiling to herself. Just I suppose it just comes across as, I'm an introvert living in my head. Perhaps that's what it is and nothing more. And also, she is feeling uneasy about this premonition, but it's like she likes her pastor way more than he likes her, in which she's asking questions that seems to amount to, I want you to watch my recital. And I don't know what she's musing about, but I suppose the idea here is she's a freshman and she has no friends. So perhaps this is just like, I'm friends with the lunch lady. Like, I don't have any peers my own age, which is a huge departure when compared and contrasted against Rose. Beautiful, popular, senior, talking to so many people, got a boyfriend, and sitting down for her slow-mo walk to get her photo taken. So we're two very dramatically different types of young ladies who are going to be on the premises together for two completely different reasons. Because Catherine's reason is sad. Rose is a fucking liar.
A liar in the best way. And what cool kid in school didn't smoke in her dorm room and lie, right? Like, there's a lot going on
Yeah.
in that. Well, really, she's smoking in the girls' room, and Kat wants to be her. Yeah, I think there's a lot going on in the conversation with that priest, and it is the beginning of like her kind of realizing that maybe her premonition was real and she's alone, so she's going to cling on to the priest in a bit of a way. And the priest is definitely leaving. He's going to Albany. It's going to take him as long to get there as it will to get back. Like, what a weird conversation, but she's a weird girl. And there is this kind of camera thing. This is the beginning of the things kind of being off center throughout this film, a little tilted, if you will, where she's sitting beside an empty chair, but looking off into the distance and smiling like she's having a conversation with something else. And this is one of those things that young babies do, apparently, is their parents will be playing with them and babbling, and then they'll look over their shoulder and see nothing up in the corner and smile and babble and talk to fucking ghosts, right? And I think that is what is supposed to be going on here, is that she has accepted that her parents are probably dead, and that's heartbreaking for a moment, as well as her favorite priest leaving or whatever. I think that she's starting to feel very, 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 very fucking alone. This whole school is full of very quiet people. I mean, even the cool girl that is lying and getting dick is quiet. The person who is the focus now is Rose. We even have a title card to reinforce that fact in the slow-mo walk to her class picture, which is a very Twin Peaksy moment. And I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's just the way the music accompanies her, which was a trick, of course, David Lynch and Angela Badalamenti's music did to complement a lot of what was going on in Twin Peaks, to focus on these women and their innocence. And I think that this taking her photo really does. And we see this photo a lot through the film. So it's just a really poignant scene in this film of Rose getting her photo taken, which sounds so subdued and so mundane. And it really, really is a sundry moment that becomes so important. But she's quiet. She's like behaved. She's keep sweet, pray and obey kind of girl, even though she's the wild one. She goes to the recital and she's still very quiet. Everyone's quiet in the school assembly, where they're told to stay. Oh, how does he phrase it? But their reputation.
Everyone's parents are coming to the school. And so here we need to be on our best behavior, because you're representing all of the girls that came before you and all of the girls that will come after you. Sounds good. And then everyone meekly, quietly, hesitantly, sounds good. And yes, I don't think that anyone in this school ever really raises their voice, or I can't imagine laughter in the hallway or anything like that. It's just a very, I'm sure the weather outside has something to do with it. Rose has a casual way with so many people. She lies casually. She seems, dare I say, flippant about things to put adults around her at ease when she's trying to get away with something. She will lie readily to friends, or at least people who know her enough to want to talk to her. And everything just seems less than serious to her on the surface, at the very least, up to and including a bit of a pickle that she has gotten herself into, which seems to be the genesis of this, which is her boyfriend. And she is a little late, and they dance around what is going on, but ultimately it's fairly clear that Rose believes that she might be pregnant.
I really like that they don't really dig into this with big long conversations about her being pregnant, because I don't really care. And it's nice that even when her boyfriend does show up on the scene and they have a conversation about it, it's kind of in point form footnotes as an afterthought, and we don't have to really sit there and talk about her pregnancy and the fact that she's not going to keep it. We don't have to have that conversation. And it is just, mid-conversation mention that we get of what's going on, enough to get what she's going through, the same thing that women have gone through since the beginning of time. It's not a big deal, really. And it's interesting how she keeps herself together pretty well. She's already made up her mind as to what she's going to do about this, right? So, yeah, it's only working as a reason for her to stay at the school, because they have the little recital with a very cute song that Elvis Perkins wrote for Kiernan Shipka to perform. And it's a very cute, breathy little song that she plays on the piano with no parents to watch her because she's still waiting for them. And it is like a lonely, quiet moment. This is another assembly hall full of very well-behaved, quiet girls barely making a peep. The lying Rose tells her friend, "Oh yeah, my parents are in the recital. I'm going to go meet them." So she's lying to literally everybody, not just the teachers that her parents are going to show up on Friday. She's lied to her parents to tell them to show up on Friday so that she has some time to deal with her things. And she's lied to her best friend, who incidentally, that actress whose name escapes me, I think it's Emma Holzer. It's Holzer nevertheless. And I looked her up because I thought she was maybe related to Hans Holzer, the famous ghost hunter. But no, it's a different Holzer altogether. But her mother was a Warhol superstar. That neat. Factory
That's very interesting. Yeah, this cast is pretty cool. It's got Lauren Holly in it, and you had mentioned Kiernan Shipka. And I loved her in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. That's very appropriate. I'm very curious if this role may have helped a little bit in getting her that role for what I think is fairly obvious reasons, although The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is a far more YA interpretation of a story like this. But I did think that it was great to see her, and I had known that she had done a lot of stuff since she was very, very little, but I hadn't seen any of that stuff before, really. I'd only ever seen her in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which she's great in, and she's a very talented actor. So I definitely could see how you could levy a lot of scenes on this young lady's shoulders to go through all of this, because there's quite an arc to the character. And what we know now is that both Rose, and who's, by the way, saying that she's sick, a little bit of a sore throat, it's all bullshit, but that is what she's saying. But nevertheless, the headmaster is going to get her to take care of Catherine. Now, it's kind of ultimately the nuns are the people that are in charge. They'll be in charge of like feeding the girls and making sure that they don't, fall down the stairs and break something. But there's that kind of sibling-y, like, no, you mind your sister, like that type of thing, which Rose is not all that interested in doing. But Catherine, like a lost puppy, just hangs on Rose's presence.
Sort of like a younger sibling or something. She's asking Rose, like, where are you going? What are you doing? And sort of following her around a little bit. And, Rose is having none of that because she has her own life. She's the cool kid, right? For how quiet everybody is in this film and how quiet this whole school is. It's a school that's in Kemptville. It was an agricultural college. Now it's a multi-use space education center. It's a campus. Still in use, so I definitely want to go visit it. But it's super quiet. Like, everything about this film is quiet. Even the deaths are quiet, because we do get some deaths. Like, it is a horror film. Don't forget. But yeah, she is sort of hanging off her, and this is another person that rejects her. So that loneliness starts to really seep in. And I can get Rose's displeasure with having to babysit this kid, right? Because she's a senior and Kat's a junior, so she doesn't want anything to do with her, fucking sour milk, sticky hands bullshit.
And it needs to be emphasized yet again. Catherine's weird. Like it's not even just the fact that there's an age gap. It's not even just the fact that Rose has better things to do, has more on her mind, up to and including going to go see a boy. And it's just the fact that Catherine's weird. It's like she's a moon man. It's like she's discovering language for the first time, has been locked in a basement for 16 years.
It is weird. And I think that it kind of works against the premise in a way when we get to what we'll discuss later as to what is her specific damage. But I like it. I still like it because it plays with this whole mood. Like this film is definitely a whole mood. We before we were recording, we talked briefly about The Lodge. Really great film, and it is super quiet as well. It's a real mood, and the people there behave a little strange. But this is this universe where everyone's a little fucking quiet, I guess, right? So it's on the same planet if she's a moon man. I do like that this scene and a few other scenes in this film establish that cell phones aren't really a thing. They exist, people have them, these kids don't have them. Kat was never given one. Her parents thought maybe for her birthday coming up, so she doesn't have a cell phone. And Rose, for whatever reason, doesn't have her cell phone. And she mentions this to her boyfriend later, that she doesn't have her cell phone. Whatever that means, if she had it taken away from her, if she's lying, because she fucking lies all the time. But little white lies, right? Just to make her life easier for the most part and less complicated. That's mostly, I think, what she's going for. But she doesn't use her cell phone. The nuns certainly don't have cell phones. Everyone seems to rely on this one payphone, including Satan. So, like,
Yeah.
really, it's neat though, because that is a struggle in writing in this modern age. Like, how do you write a modern story and not have the deus ex machina that's built in to all of our fucking pockets?
I think that there's also fairly good evidence occasionally that you could convince me that this takes place in either the late 80s or early 90s. Like, it is not entirely clear in some instances what year this is taking place at. The payphones, even the landlines that you see people using, they're so old fashioned. And we really don't spend too much time outside of this school. And when we do, there's nothing that would indicate when it's supposed to be taking place, which comes into play because this is a very non-linear story. And I wanted to cite that here because I think going into this, people should know that, because that was something that I kept bumping into until they kind of laid it out in the script. And for me, I do tend to like nonlinear storytelling when I feel as though the plots converging are told well. And in this case, I found it pretty disorienting, but it's not necessarily a big problem. But I will say that one of the things, and we talked about this a little bit before going for recording, is I really wish this was a far more isolated story than it actually ends up being. There's just so many scenes with other characters, and I really want, once the girls are alone, I would really like it if they were just alone. And I understand mechanically why you wouldn't necessarily want to do that. And it certainly, when people thought the movie was slow and quiet, I mean, if you eliminated all the other characters, it would be even more so. So I don't think that would help anybody with criticisms of a storyline like this. But I guess for me, going back to The Shining, I think what works so well with that story is there's not a lot of outside interference or outside authority figures that should be showing up, or you know what I'm saying? I suppose my biggest hiccup is just we're constantly going back to the nuns, and I'm like, I don't really want them here.
I love the nuns, and I get that, and it would be all they would need to do is have some sort of medical emergency that these nurses can't handle themselves. One of them has broken her wrist or something, and she has to go into the nearest hospital. Which we've got the idea that this is fairly far. You know, even the parents showing up, they have to drive a long way to get there. The weather is a problem because it's February wherever they're supposed to be. We only know that it's a problem here in Canada. We also know that it's not that hard to get to because it's Kemptville, but it's supposed to be somewhere else. A close friend of mine, Jordan, actually called it Unkemptville once, and that's every time I think of Kemptville, I think of ha ha ha, Unkemptville. Oh, and yeah, so it's it would elevate the isolation of these two girls. But then we'd have to remain there because we kind of don't, right? But before we leave, so to speak, script wise, this area, we do have the conversation between Rick, the boyfriend, and Rose in her car about how she's going to take care of this. And he's like, could I at least drive you? And she's like, having none of it. And he's like, call me later. And she's having none of that. But it's all a very quiet, chill, respectful conversation. She has her high heels in her hand, which I'm not really sure where they went that she needs high heels, or if she was going to have this very serious conversation. Winter boots are fine. There's no dress code for this kind of conversation, so I don't know where they had gone. But when she comes back, she can hear this weird whispering coming up through the vents. And it's coming from the boiler room because it's coming through the hot water heating. And you can hardly hear it. Did you have any problem in this film with the volume of things? Did you find it too quiet? Or is like, am I just getting old? Like, I love this film. I will turn it up. I love the score, so it's fine. But did you have any problems with the quietness of things like this?
No, I was able to hear everything fine. I thought that the mix was fine on Shutter, and
Good.
maybe there's also the fact that I watch films with subtitles on them because my
Mhm.
partner is deaf in one ear, so
Okay, good.
so
Not
they.
good, but,
Well, I know what
yeah,
you mean. I know what you mean.
yeah. Accessibility helps everybody. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, but and so now I'm just used to watching things with the subtitles on. So it's like my automatic setting on all of my streaming services just to have the subtitles on. If I was watching this on Blu-ray, I don't know if I would have bothered to turn them on. But what I will say is that yeah, the mix seemed fine to me. I could hear the whispers and stuff like that. This scene is shot very well. And all of this film is shot. And I want to be clear. If I say anything snotty about the movie, it's really more about script issues as far as I'm concerned. This is a beautifully shot movie. I just want to cite that right here. Like Osgood Perkins knows how to shoot a fucking movie. And even things being askew, tilts on the camera and things being off center and screwing around with like ratios and shit, breaking the quote unquote rules of cinematography, none of that bothers me. Like I think that's all good and effective and it's cool. So this weird sort of like slumping, bowing stuff like that. The silhouette is as such as I wasn't 100% sure who it was because it looked like a little boy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really dark. It's the darkest scene in this whole film. And it's one of the only scenes with like stark color. It has high contrast. Everything else is low key. Everything else is muted pea soup green and ochre and gray, many different shades of gray, as many shades of gray as you can fucking pack in there. Except the very opening scene where she's wearing like a blue coat and a yellow hat, which is apparently styled after the old Madeline stories. I think we've talked about those
Yeah,
books
yeah,
before, and
Madeline, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
only like in the last year I realized that those are like a Canadian thing. It's not something that people outside of Canada and maybe France.
I was gonna say because I thought it was a French thing, but
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. I had the books growing up, and I remember watching the cartoons. There was a Madeline cartoon that I
Mhm.
used to watch, and I remember the bad hat, and it was like, and it was like, this guy's a bad hat. I'm like, it was a term I had never heard before. I was like, what the fuck is a bad hat? Anyway, I'm getting lost in the weeds of Madeline. But so yeah, this is an interesting conversation that Rose is going to have where she is going to be asking Kat, what the hell? And I suppose Kat is going to say very muted to the point in which like Rose needs to like confirm that she's even really present because Kat is just not really responding, and she's also not in screen. Like she is in another room and saying, "Oh, you were sleepwalking, right?" Long pause. Yes, and I do like this incident in which Kat has this refrain where she says, the headmaster says, you're supposed to take care of me. She says this multiple times throughout the movie. But this encounter is very funny because Rose ends up doing after this conversation what I think anyone would do. Put a fucking chair under the door
Yeah.
after she's done talking. Like, I'm not, because this is beyond like, what a little freak. And at the beginning of their first time alone, Rose is kind of going a little like almost putting her on a snipe hunt type thing. She's saying that the nuns have no hair, and she's telling them lies. It's almost like an older sibling saying like, you're adopted, you know. Yeah, mom and dad got you from the zoo. Like, it's that type of nonsense where she's talking about
Yeah. Sorry, that was great. I definitely did that to my sister.
as the youngest of three, I suffered many a older sibling fib. But this dynamic has completely changed. You're no longer the dorky freshman that I'm in charge of. There's something wrong with you. And I feel unsafe enough that, at least for peace of mind, I don't think you're going to kill me or anything, wink, but I am going to put a chair under the door for some peace of mind because you're weird, dude.
Kat's not the only weird person in this world. We're introduced to Joan because we get a nice title screen that introduces us to Joan. Joan has just gotten off of a bus in the cold fucking February of somewhere USA/Canada. It's still Kempville. And this is where our stories diverge for all intents and purposes. What's interesting is in the original script, which I believe it's the original script. It has all the hallmarks of the original script. She gets off a plane. It starts out with her on a plane. It cuts to the title card, and she's a girl on a plane, and she's going over Providence. And so there's like a nod to Lovecraft there. And it's the fact of somebody taking the flight plan, probably similar to what Oz Perkins' mother had. And they have there's conversations on the plane. She's a little more upbeat. All the characters are a little more upbeat in the script. And a lot of that has changed, maybe for budget reasons, maybe because there's no fucking airport in Kempville, maybe because, yeah, it's just, a lot easier to just sidle up to this idling bus and pretend that's the bus she just got off and just play it that way. There's a lot of things they seem to be playing from happenstance within this film. Not only that, but a whole lot of the characters shaping the script as they went along. These actors are fantastic. They do a lot of heavy lifting, and the way they're delivering things or the way that they would have melded things on set perhaps really brought a lot of life to what is going on. So to look at the script after where it's like, what are we doing in a plane? She's having conversations with people. Well, I think that this is really one of two times that these characters are really mirrored, Kat and Rose. They're weird, standoffish. They wait a long time before they answer you. They look away. They're picking at their nails or looking off into fucking nowhere and hardly present. And we are approached by this very similar girl. Joan is a lot like Kat, and she's waiting for a bus to go to just past Bramford, and she has a map, so we get to see where she is. Basically, she wants to go to Bramford, but she sort of just picks this little town next to it instead for whatever reason. So we know that she's got some sort of plan even before she's approached by the kindly Bill and his wife who offer her a ride.
A wife that actually does exist, mind you. I could have, the Bill was using the classic, what are you doing there? Do you need help? Are you okay? I can give you a ride. I'm a good Samaritan. And don't worry, my wife's right over there in the car, wink. And I'm like, yeah, Joan's going to be fucking drawn and quartered before the end of the night. But no, and when they go to the car and Linda is there, I was like, oh shit, she does actually exist. My take on them not going for the airport thing is it really paints Joan as more of a vagabond, more having less means. Plane tickets cost money, and you could maybe throw out a line about this was every last cent that she had, but given what we know about her circumstances later in the film, I find it a hard time to believe that she was able to get a plane ticket going, particularly since traveling via Greyhound essentially, or and hitchhiking is far more anonymous than
Yeah.
than what a plane ticket. I mean, you need your govy to get on a plane. I don't care who you are. So that's not in her best interest. But what do you want to say about this whole aspect of the film? I don't know if I like it. I would much rather be at the school
Hmm.
than with
Hmm.
these characters. But there is a general uneasiness with the way that Bill is. And I do think that it's effective because you really don't know. And particularly if you're in my position, where I had no idea where this movie was going, that wanting to know what this guy's deal was, like, is this a Lovely Bones situation or not? I just had no idea.
And it's tough, I guess, from the casual television watcher and film goer to see, well, James Remar, he's definitely a psychopath with a psychopath for a son from Dexter, right? So, yeah, really, really, really great actor and really well balanced actor, I find here. So it's tough to gauge him, and he plays it, I think, pitch perfect in that you don't know what to expect from him. Is he coming at this girl with a psychopathic lie to get her in the car? Or is he truly concerned and just doing his civic duty, his Christian duty, his fatherly duty? Like, he plays it really, really well because it does turn out to be very innocent, although it's still a little warped because it's an Oz Perkins movie, and it's still about grief and loss because it's an Oz Perkins movie. And, he does help her out. It reminds me quite a bit of this Peter Straub story, Ghost Story. And in it, it's not like the premise of the film at all or the novel, but this guy does pick up a ghost. It's a girl that he knows is haunted or possessed by the ghost of somebody that he once knew, and he's in a hotel room with this semi-clad girl ghost, realizing that if he gets caught in a hotel room with this girl, it's not going to look good, even though he knows that he has the best intentions. I think that Bill ends up in this kind of situation, whether he realizes it or not. It's kind of weird how he doesn't seem to realize how this looks, that he's like picking up young girls from the bus station. Seriously.
Yeah. His wife indicates that he does this all of the time, too.
How annoying, eh?
It's just like you leave him. Like, what did he? They stopped off in the car. Honey, I'm gonna go take a leak, and then you come back with a girl, and it really isn't anything sinister that we know of. He's like, oh, I'm just going to give you a list now, or a lift. Now we know that Joan is interested into going, not necessarily to, was it Brampton? It's
Bramford.
Bramford.
It's the same as like the Bramford in Rosemary's Baby.
Right. So going to, she says that she is going to
The Plattsburgh? I forget. It starts with a
something.
P.
It's a P place.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's this idea where she's going to go to that location instead. But they're going to Brantford and they know that it's right on the way. So at the very least, they can help her get a little bit farther than where she's going. Although Bill's wife, Linda, Lauren Holly, so I didn't recognize her in that darkened car, but she says that, oh, you just drop her off at the next gas station quite callously. Because she's annoyed, and I don't blame her. And plus, they're going on this pilgrimage themselves, and it's quite a long drive. I mean, when we find Joan, if this car ride's any indication, she was really nowhere near where she needed to be.
She has infringed on this space, in Linda's mind anyway. Like, what other reason do you drive around with a bouquet of flowers on your back seat? I know when me and my father have a bouquet of flowers on our back seat, we're going to visit my mother's grave. So they're obviously going to visit a grave. We don't know at this point that it's their daughter, but we figure this out eventually. And I get Linda's annoyance. I really, really do. I don't get Bill's need, compulsion to help these young girls. I really, really don't, because he's got to know it looks weird, but he seems to just not have any awareness of that.
or his mentality is, I'm one of the good ones. Well, I'm doing this because there are creeps out there, and I'm going to prove that these girls are going to get home safe or whatever they need to go safely because there's predators out there. Perhaps that's what he's thinking about. But again, the optics of it is so bizarre, and he can't help but describe things in such a way that it does seem like he's a serial killer. And whether his wife could even be in cahoots, or at the very least an unwilling tag along that is, he's domineering or something like that. Like, if you listen to enough true crime, these types of relationship dynamics do exist. And this type of stuff happens to women by themselves in like hitchhiking or going through small towns all the time, big cities everywhere. So it's we're not sure really, and I still don't trust Bill as far as I could throw him. So when we eventually leave that story, it's kind of jarring to be back at the school and seeing Catherine just acting so strange.
And there's a few scenes of them there's some mirrored things between the school life and Joan on the road, let's say, where even when their car pulls away, Bill, Linda, and Joan in tow, they have a Bramford sticker on their bumper. So we know that they are affiliated with the school. We do find out, of course, their daughter went to Bramford too. And they're going basically there. They're going just past there or just around there to wherever they're going to put these flowers. They don't really explicitly say. But then we cut to the boyfriend's car. So it's like car, weird girl, world girl, very weird girl, very weird girl, getting weirder. And we're cutting back and forth between these fucking weird girls, where Kat is displaying a lot more of the signs of, I don't know, a psychotic break or possession, depending on how you want to spin it. She's, lying and like lying about who's on the phone, having weird contortion moments. She has fitful sleeps that have, like, I don't know what you reference to as yoga, midnight yoga. A secret Captain Howdy. Not only is she lying about who's on the phone, because she keeps saying, like, oh, it's Mr. Gordon, silly. He's the headmaster. And she has this weird refrain of, the headmaster says you're supposed to take care of me, or who says Mr. Gordon says, to the point that she gets mocked by Rose for saying Mr. Gordon said, Mr. Gordon said. But she also has another refrain that starts becoming a little more sinister of, you smell pretty, just randomly punctuating conversations with a big long pause of quiet, and you smell pretty. Fucking creepy. Fucking creepy. And we're cutting back to Joan acting very nonplussed, not worried that she's in a towel after inspecting her gunshot wound on her shoulder and having flashbacks of an insane asylum, and just being super quiet with Bill, and Bill being able to basically do or say whatever he wants in her presence, and her just staring off into space and rolling with it. It's very strange.
It is very strange, and you would think that Joan would be not interested in having a strange older man that she just met. Well, she's particularly vulnerable. We don't know what happened to her, but yes, we're seeing medical people. We're seeing a gunshot wound. We're seeing a lot of evidence that, she is escaping from a place like a mental institution or something. She pulled that tag off her arm. And so there is a lot of questions that we have, but just when you think that this could turn into a really weird place because Bill starts bringing up fucking Jesus of all things, and you're like, ugh, fucking ugh. Like, Bill's going to hand her some literature, and he's like, oh, here's a little chit track that you can you can read about, and it's like the thing is people try to find God in books, and where God really is in situations like this. He compares her to his daughter, and they're going to go to a diner, and he's going to explain more in depth about his daughter. And he is going to show them a picture that we have been privy to its taking, because it is none other than the lovely Rose.
Isn't that poignant? And I think that there could even be times that people would be watching this and still not really understand that these are two different timelines. And this is the part that cements it. There are a few little hints, and maybe there is a little hint in that Joan doesn't look like Kat at all. But they're trying. They're trying with the blonde hair with darkened roots, very dark eyebrows, very dark eye. They're trying with makeup to make these girls look and resemble one another. Do you think they've failed, or is this a point? Was this the point where, like, was it very clear that this was in the future?
Yes, I did gather that this was a non-linear storytelling. Now, the revelation, and I mean, you kind of let it out the bag. We'll just say it. The Joan is Catherine, and this is a different timeline. What's happened? What has brought Catherine here under the guise of Joan? I don't know. They're played by two different actresses, and that is Emma Roberts, by the way, who is taking over for Kiernan Shipka, and as the age difference, right? They clearly wanted to. I think Perkins wanted one of two things: one, to age up the character, and you don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to do that digitally. I argue you probably could have just done some makeup and done her hair a little bit differently to indicate 10 years isn't. I mean, I suppose 10 years you can change a lot from when you're a freshman in high school to in your, you'd be pushing 30 at this point. But, I suppose the other thing that he would want to do is obscure this fact, because it is a revelation for later that this is indeed the same character. This aspect of the story is fine. It's not something that I think is particularly well executed, and I really just think that I would have liked it a little bit more streamlined than this. However, I suppose to make the point that Perkins is interested in making, you do need to execute it like this. Although now, in hindsight's 2020, obviously I could sit down with this script and explain a far more coherent way to tell this story and get the same effect. But that's fucking backseat driving on my part, and I'm not a scriptwriter. I'm not a director. So fuck me. But I don't know. Again, going back to my original, it's just too much time out of the school. I don't know why I'm sitting in this diner. I don't know why I'm sitting in this car. I don't care.
If they would have successfully sold that Joan is Kat and that she's going to do something to get back to where she was when we left her in front of the boiler praying to Satan with her Captain Howdy phone calls, I think that it would be a little more compelling, because we were also fed a little tiny little red herring earlier when Rose is telling Kat that the nuns are witches, basically, that they shave their heads and they're hairless, and if you look close at their eyebrows, you see they burnt off. And oh yeah, no, everybody knows this. I heard it from so and so. She's probably in a psych ward somewhere still. And it's like, okay, so we had this little tiny red herring of the girl that was proved that the nuns are witches at Bramford, not unlike the Tans Academy in Suspiria, or not unlike Roald Dahl's witches, in The Witches, not unlike any other coven of witches that are proven to be hairless or whatever. She's figured out the cult, so she ended up in a psych ward and she's escaped, and she's got to be Rose, right? And she's got to be Joan, right? Like that. I think even in the story, in the script anyway, this girl who discovered that the nuns are hairless witches, her name is Jen. It's not too far from Joan. So if someone was hinging on the fact that these are happening in the same timeline and they're going to converge and Joan is going to show up to the school with Kat, they could have, totally overlooked this kind of time gap. And the fact that Kat goes, or as we know her as Joan, goes into the bathroom and has a laugh session, a laugh riot over the fact that she's in the car with the parents of the girl she killed. It's not telegraphed. It's no more telegraphed than the fact that Rose was pregnant. We're learning all of this in snippets and half-had conversations. and weird laughs in the bathroom, weird remembrances, the fact that she has a flashback to strangling this girl named Joan, who she probably stole the bus ticket from. So she has nothing but 2 quarters on her to make a phone call. To who? No one? Satan? I mean, the same 2 quarters that young Kat had in her pocket. So it's a problem, I think, of the script. And one of the only problems, because I think this is really masterful. I really enjoy this film and the writing going on here. Except right here, I find this is where those who were unable to really stitch together the timeline here would have some trouble. And they could have maybe given us a little bit firmer indication that Joan is Kat.
Yeah, I was pretty late to the party on that one. So I'm not smart, Liz. I never claimed to be smart.
I don't think it's smart. I think it's just like they were given this little red herring. And if you had remembered that in your back of your mind, you're like, this is that girl that escaped from the insane asylum that's heading back to school in the same time frame as Kat and Rose being in the school right now. And I think it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Well, I mean, you're even smarter than I am in that instance, because I did not even put that together. I didn't know who this Joan was. I completely did not remember. Well, I remembered that there was a person who went to an asylum, but my brain did not. Again, I'm just.
And that it's not even true, probably. It's an urban legend, for crying out loud, at Bramford. So, like,
yeah,
there probably wasn't, it was the same girl that got pregnant from the toilet seat, right?
I was chopping it up to Rose just fucking with her. I was like, it's a snipe hunt lie. It's just something that older kids tell younger kids, and Catherine sitting there with the what? Really? No way. It was all played for that. So like my brain instantly deleted it. I was like, these nuns aren't witches. Now, if they were, if they were, I mean, I could understand that. They are pretty weird themselves, but I was just like, they're just nuns. Like they're just like career religious people. They're always fucking weird. So
the graduates of Bramford, probably.
Probably. And they clearly live like on the premises. They have their own home on the premises, and they're caretakers, and they're not going anywhere to the outside environment, and they're going to be taking care of the girls, feeding them food, having them say their prayers, causing them to vomit violently. Catherine got her hair down, as you said. And we know she's evil because she's in sweats. So she's also vomiting. She's not interested in saying grace. This kind of prim and proper, quiet, a downright role model of a student is acting like a delinquent. And she is so ill that they take her to their little medicine area, the doctoring nursing area that is also within the home. And Catherine calls them the C word.
Yeah, it's thanks to Satan and his phone calls. Like, he's already called her a couple times to say that she can live there. It's fine. And she's telling Rose this, like, it's okay. He called and said that I could stay here. Just me and him will live here. And she's like, who? He's like, she thinks, and like, Mr. Gordon's silly. Like, making no sense. She gets a phone call from Satan a couple times, and he refers to these women as cunts. But this is a hint where Chris had brought it up this morning when we were talking about this film. This is one of the most definitive moments in her possession journey where she is speaking with 2 voices. I think that later she does exhibit what could be taken as bilocation. And there's a lot of scenes in the script where Rose is on one side of the door and Kat is on another side of a door coming down the hallway, and we can hear the clacking of high heels or boots. And when the door opens, it's Kat alone in bare feet or sock feet. So this idea that Satan is accompanying her, and has from the first time she was sitting in the priest's office, is a kind of this comes to a point when she calls the nurses cunts, because she's definitely using profane language, that's a sign of possession. Speaking in two voices at once, that binaural tone. Are there other there's other proof of possession going on here?
Well, you had mentioned the contortion. I think the overall, she's kind of doing the Kubrick stare a couple of times where she's looking through her forehead a little bit. That's a classic indication of possession. But I think that it goes from being a kind of vacant but ultimately harmless little weirdo to being somebody who is no less weird but far more provocative, in the sense that they look like they have a bit of an edge to them where they could potentially be dangerous. The way in which she becomes such a close talker, and the way that she says things in a more flat tone, and then when she realizes how silly it sounds, she will go up in a higher register. But there's definitely it's definitely quite obvious, particularly by the time she is mocking the word of God at lunch or whatever, that I do not believe that Catherine is present with us any longer. Certainly we get more of a sense of how she becomes possessed very shortly, but in this instance, just before the nuns get the phone call, it is pretty clear that it's no longer her. Those are more direct examples, because I didn't catch the audio. Like, again, this film would require another viewing. The premonition seems to be accurate, and we need to get Rose out of there, because go shovel the pathway between two houses. Rose views this as a punishment. I wasn't the one that cursed you out. I didn't call you a cunt. Well, go and do it down to the earth, and we'll be back. And just to keep you occupied. Now, Rose is going to do that and then go off on her merry way. Meanwhile, to deliver the bad news in person, which I'm assuming the phone call was like, I'm going to tell her, but for now, just, get her by herself. And they're going to show up with a police officer, the headmaster. The door is locked. No one's answering. Good thing he's got a key. And they're going to go around the house, enter, we see a blood stain, and we're out of here. We're going to cut away from what we're witnessing. Now, this last little bit of the film, this is like about 30-ish minutes left, less than 30 minutes left in the movie at this juncture, when we are going to see all of these storylines converge more or less, as much as they can. Now, when we're back to Joan, she's going to have a conversation with Linda, and she is going to indicate that Rose was murdered and that their husband is basically delusional, and says that, he's going to describe Rose, and he is going to quite say, you don't look anything like her. I don't see her in you at all.
To the point that she says, I don't even see you. And I think that I like the scene a lot. Like, it's got very David Lynch vibes, as far as this mother who's distraught and angry and seeing things for what they are and having no one listen to her, I suppose. But she's also in a car to hear her tell it alone, because this girl in the back, who she can obviously see, she claims she can't see her at all. So she seems very alone in all of this, of like, her husband is delusional, as you said, seeing his dead daughter in everybody, especially this girl that looks nothing like her. And it's true, she doesn't look anything like Rose. It's obvious. We even see that. I mean, Chris had pointed out something good, that would these parents recognize the girl who killed their daughter? I was like, meh, maybe it's some lesser magic and she's kind of got a bit of a fugue, even though whether Satan does or does not exist and whether possession or mental illness is at play here, even in this very scene in the back of the car, is up for debate. If she's capable of some sort of glamour of lesser magic or something, in that she appears a little blurry to people, I don't know. Or that she has just aged up so much. People do change sometimes, especially blonde people for whatever reason. Their facial features really can reconstruct. Their full on fucking bone structure changes between the ages of, say, 14 and 25, right? So like, It could be that they don't recognize her for that. It could be that she was medicated and kept away from any court proceedings. It could be that she was never caught necessarily and maybe looked at as a victim of this tragedy alongside the girl who was killed. So it's really vague. It's really underwritten purposefully, I think. But so is this mother's conversation. She's having the conversation for the most part with the windshield about like, he probably told you that you look like her, didn't he? He tells everybody that. And she's like really angry about this whole thing. And then Bill gets in the car and it's just like, well, off we go. And it's all smoothed over.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the tension is there, but I mean, when it comes to Joan's reaction to everything, yeah, you could see how, I mean, Linda's words are practically meaningless to Joan. So, particularly where this film goes, we are going to get more of a window into Catherine's possession process. I really wish the film dealt with this more. It is just not enough. And I think it's because it was the thing that I was the most interested in. Is I do like to see a slow burn possession and dedicating. I think it would be very interesting to have like a story that really was about these two young ladies stranded together while one person is slowly getting possessed by Satan and what that amounts to. But we are going to get a more of a window, and this time we're actually going to get Catherine's like little title card finally.
It's weird because we've thought of this movie as being about Kat for all this time, but it's really been about Joan and Rose.
And I thought I missed it. I thought when they did Rose and then they did Joan, I was like, oh, did I just miss Catherine's? Like, was I not watching the movie as well as I thought I was? But no, they've just waited till now to do it. And we are going to see the events that we have seen in a truncated form, but also a little bit extra, more the phone calls, hearing her, what she believes is trying to contact her parents, and then it sounds kind of like a growly demon, then kind of like her father. She thinks perhaps maybe, but then no, absolutely not. We're also going to see how often she's actually seeing this satanic entity, which it would explain why she's kind of vacantly staring off into other directions, because we see this shrouded, horned individual, and that is going to be their representation of Satan in all of this. And it's going to bring us to what really happened to those nuns. And these stabbing sequences are quite visceral. And if you were waiting for the slow burns to be over while you see characters that you've spent a lot of time with getting brutally hacked to death, well, you're in luck, because that is what's going to happen. And this is going to, because Catherine, man, she's got a fever and the only prescription is decapitation. She loves to cut people's heads off.
She really does. And it's weird because I don't remember specifically Satan asking for heads in any literature, but I am no demonologist, nor am I like a theological Satanist either, right? So I don't really know if he does have a penchant for headlessness, but he didn't mention it in the phone calls. He calls her baby girl a couple times, which is kind of cute.
Yeah.
But
he gives her a little pet name.
Like, yeah, it's cute. Satan's cute in this so far. But wow, yeah. There's not a lot of screaming. There's not a lot of like Kensington gore. But it is brutal, and it's like she's punching that steak knife into them. We have had some duality with Joan noticing a steak knife in the diner and the same sort of knife being Kat's weapon of choice. She stabs them several times, if not tens of, almost 100 times. It's crazy, the hate and brutality, but the look of sorrow that crosses her face with all of these killings. As she's, cutting heads off, she doesn't look happy about it. She's not stoked. She's not in a psychotic glee. She is determined to kill these people, stop them from crawling. She stabs them enough to make them fall down and stop them, and then she goes about the business of making sure they're dead and cutting their heads off. And it's just sad and brutal, and it goes on a long time. These people leak to death before their heads are cut off. It's harsh.
Yeah. And this is going to lead us, by the way, the blood in the snow is quite effective. And there's an instance in which the nuns' heads are being carried into pillowcases. And I enjoy the blood trail that extends around the property to indicate where she's going. And where she's going is to where Rose is. Rose has, to her relief, discovered she's not pregnant while she's in the bathroom. And she does hear a stirring outside, Rose does, and calls for Catherine, and it leads her to a stairwell in which the pillowcased heads are there. Now we know that Rose was murdered, and we know that Catherine is the one to have done it. There's no one else that could be doing this. So what I think we're not prepared for is how fucking brutal watching Rose get murdered is, because she doesn't take any less time killing Rose than she did anybody else. And the first few stabs in the stomach are bad enough, but then it's just the constant stabbing of her back while she's still up against the wall, and then the matter-of-fact way in which she wrenches up the hair of the now dead Rose and obviously is going to decapitate her, and it's going to end up in a boiler room abattoir playset of malevolence and evil, where we have all the heads just sitting there looking at the boiler while the headmaster is nowhere to be seen, but the police officer who's there is, and he comes into that bloody scene, and Catherine says, "Hail Satan." And I will say, "Hail Satan" never sounds good. It always sounds fucking dumb, because I can't imagine anybody saying it with any conviction where I wouldn't laugh. Even if they had severed heads with them, Lids, I think it's that silly. But I think this is a very effective Hail Satan. What do you think?
It is, and it's delivered in that way that she does, where she's looking at the cop who's fucking terrified. He's got his gun out. He's got a rifle out, for fuck's sakes, because he's a Canadian cop. He's more used to taking down mooses than little girls in the boiler rooms of boarding schools. And he's losing his shit. Like, put the knife down. I'll shoot you. Put the knife down. Stop. Put your hands up. And he's like freaked out because there's a headlessness going on in this room. And she takes her time, like she has been, and says "Hail Satan" in the most straightforward, calm manner, and almost as an afterthought says it at a slightly higher register, which is a thing that she's been doing, where she says no, like thinking about the lie that she's going to tell about who was on the phone, and then responding to reaffirm that. So it's like she's just matter of fact stating "Hail Satan," and then drives it home with a second, slightly more insistent, yet still subtle and straightforward "Hail Satan" before getting shot in the shoulder. And yet another parallel, like Joan is cat, so that's why she has that bullet hole, that through and through on her shoulder. And it's very effective. It's another scene in the boiler room where we have a lot of high contrast, black and red going on, high contrast in Kat's very pale, very brightly lit face, and the terrified cop in black and white. It's a second one of those very high key scenes. I like it a lot because the soundtrack, the score here is just wonderful. It accompanies it perfectly. It's extremely tense. They've modulated the cop's voice so you can tell that it's coming at her, at Kat, kind of through a filter of evil, I guess. Everything's kind of slow and underwater and garbled, and yeah, it's really cool. I like the scene a lot.
This is going to lead us to where we might suspect. Now, Catherine is lying in a hospital bed, and we're going to get a very truncated exorcism scene. The power of Christ is going to compel you. And in this instance, her priest friend from the head of the movie, back from vacation to see what horrors have wrought this poor boarding school and all the death that has become of it, all because he wanted to go on vacation and miss a recital. I'm blaming him. But he is going to make a declarative, you are not welcome here. And he is going to, now, gang, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of this, but you can't just perform an exorcism. You need to,
I know. I've been thinking about this for fucking 2 days now.
It's like you, first of all, if we're going by just the strict rules of the Catholic Church, he needs to be approved to perform exorcisms in the first place. Secondarily, he needs to get permission from the Vatican to perform it based off of a case-by-case basis. Now, are we led to believe that she has been possessed in this hospital bed for weeks, if not months? Possible. We don't know. There's really no indication. But, or perhaps he's just a rogue, badass, exorcising priest, and he's like, I'm doing it. I'm the hell with the devil and the Vatican. I'm going rogue. And in either case, he is successful. Catherine is going to look into the corner and seeing that shadowy figure of Satan vanish. She is going to plead, heartbroken, don't go.
Which is so sad. And this is the saddest possession movie ever, aside from just the manner of the deaths and what's to come, because we still have some left of the movie to go, right? It is so sad because she has had her parents torn from her. Her favorite priest friend has turned his back on her. Everyone at the school is gone. Rose is shitty. The nuns are no help at all, right? And they're gone now too. Sure, by her hand, but they're gone. Everyone's gone. The priest has turned his back on her and taken away sweet daddy Satan. So she has literally nobody. It's weird though. This priest must have gone rogue, because you have to prove that a mental health issue is not what is appearing as possession. And she's strapped to a fucking bed in a psych ward. So, like, obviously that has not been proven to me. So, and is it like, am I just have watched too much of The Exorcist and been taken with so much exorcist jokes? Isn't there supposed to be a young priest in the room as well?
I don't know if you actually need to, but at the very least we know from the Warrens, who like wrote a whole goddamn fucking book out, an approved book. They didn't write it, but it was a priest had written it and it was approved by them, that went into the whole the demonology, like it was called the demonology or whatever the hell it was called.
The demonologist,
yeah, the demonologist. And in that book, they very explicitly outline the requirements that it takes to perform exorcisms, and it's complicated.
And these aren't the Roman rites that he's reading. Like, he is reading from a Bible, and he seems to have a rudimentary exorcist kit, but it's just holy water and a Bible. Like
maybe he saw The Exorcist and was like, I could do it. The sound was turned off, but I got the gist of it.
I think so. I think that's got to be it.
But he does do a great job, perhaps too good of a job. And now we find that Catherine / Joan, one and the same, are now left wanting. Joan, now we're in the present time, 9 years later. It's been 9 years. I don't know if we said that, but it's been 9 years since Catherine murdered the nuns and Rose and was locked away. So we know that they are encroaching on the school. We can see it. And what I thought was a little bit of subterfuge. Got a sick tummy. Classic. Can you pull over? Now, Linda does not want them to pull over here, which again is begging the question, why are they making this pilgrimage here if there was never an intention to stop and lay flowers at the school? Perhaps just the fact that they picked up a person, Linda's agitated, and all of that stuff. Maybe this is just, no. It feels wrong. This is wrong. I don't want to stop at the school. I'm too upset. And she's holding her hands in tears, which is good enough to miss Bill getting his throat slit by Joan, who's sitting in the back seat and hiding that steak knife. And when she realizes in horror, we get another, like, Bill gets off easy out of anybody in the fucking movie because Linda is going to be stabbed 50 fucking times in that car, and then we're doing a decapitation all over again. 2 more decapitations. That's 5 headless bodies in this film. The decapitations themselves aren't graphic, but they make it very clear about what's happening, and you do get some gore. And she puts them, what does she put them? She puts them in luggage to carry them the rest of the way to the school. Let me ask you this, because I couldn't indicate. I understand that it's been 9 years, but the nuns' place is still boarded up. Is this entire school abandoned at this point?
It seems to be, and it seems to have been abandoned as it happened. So after the murders, there looks like there has been some vigil here. There's a photo on the ground of the deceased Rose, and it looks like it's been there for quite some time. She goes up to the boarded door of the school, and it's not clear exactly how she gets in the school. But yeah, everything's boarded up. And I wish that they would have drove home, like the distance between the nun's house and the school itself. It's not really clear in the film, so it might have given you a little more that feeling of isolation. In the script itself, the headmaster comes back via snowcat, not unlike The Shining.
Oh, wow.
So it would have helped, but that's not apparent in this. He definitely drives there in a car because we're not heathens here in Kemptville. We have cars and roads like civilized folk. So yeah, if he would have come on a snowcat, though, it might have helped if there had been a lot of snow, because she has to shovel the driveway for anyone to get in before she's killed. And it would have, like, that snowed in feeling might have helped a little bit with that isolation. But yeah, it's isolated enough that she can kill 2 people on the driveway and no one notice, and roll on up with her rolly bag like she's some sort of government worker carrying a laptop. And yeah, in she goes. Where's she going? We know. To the boiler room.
The boiler room, which is not boiling any longer. It's cold, it's dark, and we can see through visuals, but we can tell that Catherine now, through perhaps extrasensory or that presence that she felt when the devil was around, is no longer present. She touches the boiler itself, dark and cold. There is nothing there, and there is no connection. She is truly abandoned. Now, in the very early morning, daybreak, she's going to walk down that street, and she's going to break down crying, alone, isolated, no parents, no priest, no friends, no devil. And that is when she must sit with her own loneliness and discomfort.
And yeah, I think this is just a poignant film. It is the saddest possession film. If somebody likes a real downer of a film, but doesn't want it to be about, depression, it's not so much about mental illness or about like a childhood sexual assault, which is the fodder of a lot of downer, bleak, depressing filmmaking. This is something different. This offers something quite a bit different because it is just, that horrible circumstance that this poor girl's been left in, and sort of that weird promise of being possessed by the devil that was even pulled out from under her. Really, really sad, though, especially because she's committed all these goddamn murders. How much headlessness could one delinquent devil need?
If you were to be more interpretive with this script, it doesn't even necessarily need to be about the fact that Osgood Perkins is seemingly perpetually dealing with the loss of his parents, even well into the age of his 50s. I get it. It's like, your parents died. My dad died. I'm sad. Like, it doesn't really change or go away, or how we cope and process things is different for everybody. But it could also just be a simple sense of isolation. And I think that could be beyond the death of anything. I think everybody knows what it's like to be lonely, or perhaps even know what it's like to change who you are and give everything you are to a person. Imagine if this was an abusive, toxic partner who kept you isolated from your family and friends, and you did everything for them, and then in the end they break up with you or they die, and you've in the process of being in this horrible, isolated relationship, you've severed every tie with everybody else. And once that relationship ends, however it must, you find yourself now with no connections. And the reason, why didn't you leave this person sooner? Well, I was afraid to be alone. And there's lots of ways that you can interpret this, that's not just strictly my parents died type thing. But because Osgood Perkins tells these stories over and over, it is about that. And it's hard for me to remove my brain from that interpretation. I could see it having multitudes of interpretations for people through all walks of life, going through a lot of different things, not just my mom and dad are dead.
I think a little bit of this, or a different sort of mourning or guilt, is captured in Bill, James Remar's character, where he sees his dead daughter in everyone. And I've definitely had, and when you're summing up, like, someone can experience these feelings not only from possession of a demon, but the possession of a real life demon in an ex or something that has died, which I've definitely experienced with somebody who didn't treat me very well and was psychologically abusive and then died. And you are kind of fetterless, kind of unfettered in a way in the world, in the worst way. But then when you think you see them around every corner for years later, it's terrifying and angry making, because you're glad they're gone. It's a very warped idea, but I can relate to what Bill was going through with seeing them. Maybe not in the positive light though, where he wanted to help these people and have them around him, and just to have a little girl in the back seat of the car, just a presence, that sort of thing, that was part of the hole he was filling.
Driving her to school.
Yeah, like the hole that is left in the lives of the Perkins brothers by their parents, sudden and kind of like, not so much in their mother, but the fact that their father's illness was kept from them the way that it was. It's a sudden death, and their mother's unbelievably abrupt sudden death, and all of those emotions around that are being worked out in these films, beginning with this one, because this is the first in a long line of that sort of sentiment. Absolutely fits to me, like I said, with the great heavy hitters of psychological and demonic horror, satanic horror, if you will. Absolutely love this. There's a few small things that I think could have been tuned, but it's his first script and first fucking film. Like, hats off, the bad hat off to this guy.
So what do we got next for him?
Coming up next, we're gonna go trudging through the snow a little bit deeper. We're gonna do Misery. It's a holdover from Stephen King-a-Palooza. If you had listened to our Stephen King-a-Palooza episodes, we talked about this exact scenario where we're going to do Misery in the most miserable fucking month of the year, in the middle of the horrible February cold. I don't even know if Misery takes place in February, but it fucking feels like it. It's gray, it's cold, it's terrible, it's miserable. It's a perfect time to put a smile on our faces with a little less Oz Perkins A24 action and a little more Stephen King.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I know over the years, as we've tackled various Stephen King films for Stephen King-a-Palooza, we've talked about Misery and always dismissed it, because I think it is something that needs to be talked about during wintertime. I think we did The Shining during December one time, I feel like. And so, yeah, we save a lot of the biggies that take place in the wintertime. I was going to say, well, then there's only Dreamcatcher next, but I don't think a lot of people like that movie. It's been a long time since I've seen Dreamcatcher, but that's a snowy one too.
I need to watch Dreamcatcher and Insomnia for Stephen King universe reasons, because there's a lot of things with Dick Halloran has ties to Insomnia, and there's other things that have to do with Derry, because I had watched Welcome to Derry, and really enjoyed that, and really enjoyed a lot of the Easter eggs and fan service as far as the Stephen King universe, the multiverse things.
I heard a lot of good things about it.
Oh, it's great. It was really great. It's a little bit try hard in that there's so much fan service to do in the multiverse. There's so much things, it's one of the only It stories where the the deadlights become terrifying to people who don't know what they are. Because I think that people who read it understood what the deadlights were. And then they get to see the film and it's just like an afterthought, but it's terrifying to somebody who knows what they are. It's not as terrifying, or maybe just missed by people who don't. But they actually make them pretty scary in Welcome to Derry. So I really enjoyed that. And we get to see it, the creature, the entity, the alien, his deadlights, quite a bit. So yeah, I really have to watch a little bit more and read a little bit more Stephen King, because there's so much to be had. Misery I've not read since I was a kid, like little. I read Pet Sematary, Carrie, Misery, and Thinner, I think, were my first Stephen King books. And then I read Tommyknockers and had to take a break. And then read it and like went on with the big books, because I read the 3 big ones and then went back to reading his like shorter things. But I have not read Misery for a very long time. So I've got a copy. Chris bought me a copy for my birthday, so I'm going to read it before we watch it.
That'll be super useful, because I'm actually very curious how close it is to the movie. I've probably not seen Misery in probably 15 years,
Nice.
if not more. So I don't even have a copy of it, I don't think. So it'll be interesting to check it out. Obviously, it's one of those things where it's one of the most iconic performances in all of horror, and it'll be great to sit down with a classic and really dive into it. And it's nice to do a Stephen King movie outside of Stephen King-a-Palooza, so we can like dip in, dip out.
I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm Wes Knipe.
And I'm looking forward to it.
And you've been looking forward to it while listening to Dead Air. If you like this show, you can find more episodes and other content on splatterpictures.net, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. We also upload all episodes to YouTube now, if you'd prefer to listen that way. You can find us across social media like Instagram, X, and TikTok, and the show is edited by Lydia Peever and hosted by Lydia Peever and me, Wes Knipe. We'll see you next time.